I can tell you this right now. I'm getting a weird feeling about the Steelers this year. There's usually a team every year that gets like the benefit of some breaks in the schedule, like stuff that maybe you didn't see, before the season, but you end up looking at it and you go, man, they've really kind of gotten a lucky draw when it comes to this whole thing. So they open up the year and they get Kirk Cousins in game 1 against the Falcons on the road. And clearly the offense wasn't up to snuff. Like they were trying to figure some things out. They probably did figure it out on that final drive against the Eagles on Monday night. And the Steelers are able to, with defense and Justin Fields not turning the ball over, win that game. And then they go to Denver. They get a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. They're still trying to figure that thing out, and they win that game. Now they're going to end up with potentially a backup quarterback against the Chargers. Anthony Richardson has been up and down for the Colts. Like, it feels like everything is early on starting to line up for the Steelers. And as down on them as I was before the year, I just wonder if this is going to be one of those years where they're going to end up with like double-digit wins, and you're going to look back and go, yeah, but it's like a flawed record, but it's not going to matter because Mike Tomlin's going to be above 500 again, and this team's going to be sniffing the playoffs. Like, I can already get that vibe.
I'm not ready to go there yet. I think if Easton Stick starts, that's maybe the beginning of this conversation. It also would be interesting to see, too, when Russell Wilson is back healthy, if there's any issue with that or if they somehow find a way around it. Like, that's kind of the pink elephant in the room that they don't have to address it because I'm not sure when Russell Wilson's going to be 100% healthy and ready to go. As I said before, it looked like when he was warming up, that calf injury was way more serious than they let on to believe. So we'll see how that transpires. But you're right. I mean, every single season, there's a few teams that usually have a little bit of luck or the ball tends to bounce their way. Maybe it is Pittsburgh this year. Maybe it's Tomlin remaining to always have a winning record. I mean, they're obviously headed in that direction right now. It's only going to give more motivation to VAR. So that's the hard part is having to hear him get so excited about it every single time is going to be a little bit annoying.
Well, here's what pisses me off about it, because I've been so down on Pittsburgh going into this season because I thought I had a pretty good read about just the division. Like I was not sold on Baltimore. I just felt like, last year was a bad loss in the AFC title game. There's going to be a step back and a letdown. And so I've been, I love Cincinnati to win the division. I've been consistent with that. And the Steelers, I'm like, oh no, they've got the worst quarterback situation in the NFL. They're basically paying these two guys pennies. There's a reason for that. The previous team didn't want them, so on and so forth. And yet here we are, and it's like the same old, and you guys tried to warn me. We went through the early portion of the schedule, and I'm like, oh, they're going to lose to Atlanta. Denver early in the year is a tough place to play. They're going to lose that game. The Chargers are going to win that game. A road game against Indianapolis, who were nearly a playoff team. And you look at it and go, no, like there's a real chance this team, before they get to Dallas in week 5, could be 4-0. And
let's actually take this a step further. Let's go through every one of the teams right now that's atop their division.
Oh, God.
And you tell me if there is any buzz about them in the offseason,
okay,
or if it's a little bit more dormant or quiet, okay?
Okay.
So we'll start off with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh right now leads the AFC North, which is not what we had thought. You got Baltimore 0-2, Cincinnati 0-2, obviously at this point in time. Cleveland's 1-1. But Pittsburgh's atop of the AFC North. And I don't know if there was as much discussion about them. And look, it is what it is. When you have a Jamar Chase contract negotiation, that's going to take up a decent amount of the offseason amongst some other things. But they were not talked about as much. Probably the least talked about of any of the 4. Is that fair to say for the AFC North?
And by the way, they're 2-0, and both those are road games.
Right.
Right.
Let's go to the AFC East. I think it's fair to say the Jets, maybe the Dolphins, were some of the most talked about teams are discussed. Yeah, they're sitting at 3rd and 4th. Right. They're tied for the bottom of it. The Buffalo Bills, once again, even with all the changes on their roster, they're 2-0 leading the AFC East. So there's that.
Yeah, the window closed on Buffalo. Stephon Diggs is gone. Gabe Davis is gone. Right. It's like, yeah, here we go.
You, in particular, thought the Texans would take a step back. Now, they did make some offseason moves, so maybe this doesn't work for the AFC South. But the Texans are 2-0. The rest of the division's 0-2.
Oh, man.
And that's a team that, I mean, there was enough probably talk about them in the offseason, so maybe they don't fit this category. But
I just bought into Jacksonville last year. Like, I looked at Jacksonville and New Orleans last year like the same team. Expectations let down. New Orleans has bounced back. Jacksonville is not. Like it is, and so yeah, Houston's sitting there atop the division again.
And the other team that I'd say we probably didn't talk about quite as much, even though they do have a new head coach in Jim Harbaugh, are the Chargers, who are tied atop the AFC West with the Chiefs. You go to the NFC, the Vikings are atop the NFC North. Yeah, I mean, all the conversation in the offseason was about Chicago, the number one pick, and Justin Fields, everything else, even Green Bay, Jordan Love's new deal in Detroit. It's Minnesota. That's 2-0.
Correct.
The NFC South, you've got the Saints, and you've got the Bucks.
Yep.
I mean, Atlanta was all the talking point, right? With Kirk Cousins and everything else.
It's just...
And go to the NFC West. You got Seattle. Seattle, who there was no conversation about. Like, if anything, I mean, thanks to you, it was Brandon Ayuk, the 49ers, though. I mean, all the offseason storylines, everything that was hyped up, none of those teams right now are in the top pole position in their divisions.
I thought Seattle was going to be so bad that they'd move to Vancouver. Like, that's how bad I thought they'd be. And yet here we are, they're sitting atop the division. It's just like, okay.
How would they be that bad?
I don't know. I assumed, this is going to be a step back for Seattle. And people can look at this and say, well, it's just 2 games. What does it matter? Well, no, like history tells us, even like if you start off 2-0, like these teams that are 2-0 in the NFL right now, at least a couple of these are going to the playoffs. Like we know that. Like that's the history of the NFL. The percentages would say so. And it's also on the flip side, the 0-2 teams and, the 12% and only 2 of 21 since they expanded the playoffs. Like we could sit here and just say, oh, well, it's just 2 weeks into the... No, like this is an indicator that there's a couple of these teams that, at least in my case, I didn't expect a lot from that's going to be a playoff team. And that's why the NFL every year does this to where somebody pops up out of nowhere and makes a run, and we're looking at it going, well, nobody had that. Like, and that's what I think what makes the NFL fun, because there's always a team. You kind of have an idea, like in the NBA or in Major League Baseball and some of these other sports, like, okay, you kind of know going in, all right, so-and-so is going to be there. But like in the NFL, there's always a team every year that pops up out of nowhere and gets a break or an injury happens, and here we are. And a bunch of these 2-0 teams, I just assumed step back, didn't take serious, and here I am knowing that I'm going to be wrong on a lot of these picks.
Yeah,
really
that's every year, though. That's every year. I mean, we're all in the same boat. There's always going to be a few misses here and there.
Like, which team sitting at 0-2 do you look at and go, I was as wrong about them as I was anything else in the NFL thus far? Like,
as of right now, probably the Rams.
Yes,
that's
agree.
An 0-2 team that I think I had them when we went through our list, like a playoff team. I mean, the other team. I mean, you could say the Ravens, although I like them this week versus Dallas. I think they take care of business, get their first win. You obviously don't, so
yeah.
We'll see how that pans out, but definitely the Rams and probably the Ravens.
Yeah. So I had the Rams winning the division. That ain't happening probably, especially based on the injuries. I had the Bengals.
Does that have anything to do, though, with you doing that show and you feeling like you kind of need to cater to the LA market?
No, because there's nothing I like more. Anybody that watches the Challenge or listens to the Blowtorch AM 570, there's nothing I like more than finding a flaw in a local team and just grinding it into the ground. Like I will give me the shovel. I will dig the grave for that team and do it with a smile. I love nothing more than that. It's fun because people panic and you can kind of press some buttons and all that. But I really thought the Rams were going to win the division. I thought San Francisco was going to take a step back. I wasn't sure about Arizona, but I thought they could be a surprise. But I looked at the Rams, I go, man, they're going to get Cooper Kupp back, like Matt Stafford coming off last year. Like, you could argue they probably should have won that game against Detroit in the playoffs. And yet here we are a couple of games into the season. Injuries have piled up. They're 0-2. Like, it doesn't feel like an ideal spot to be in.